Hi everyone, welcome to this special episode of Level of Detail, celebrating International Women's Day. I'm Emma Fallows and I'm joined by a lineup of extraordinary women from the Games Development Department here at Staffordshire University. With me we have Catherine, Sharon and Wasan, and we'll be taking on some of the amazing achievements of women in games, as well as our own experience of working in the industry and being girls who game. So we'll also touch on the representation of women in games, both on screen and behind the scenes, including positive progress over recent years and what more could be done. And who better to join us on our journey than one of the gaming world's most iconic female characters, Lara Croft, as we play the original Tomb Raider game, before taking on 2018's Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So, let's play. We seem to be having a lot of fun with the guns at the moment.
Yeah, the gun's out.
That corpse is flying.
Yeah, that look.
Or not.
They've got no chance.
As the case may be.
I am very pleased with myself because I managed to move Lara by increments, tiny little increments, until she was able to unlock the door to this place. So I'm very impressed with my... Okay, we have another door. I get the feeling we can't go through that door just yet.
So what's your general experience with Tomb Raider in the past then? Have you played much of it?
Well, I've played, so I used to play this back in the late 90s because I lived in a share house with a bunch of game guys, basically. And this was definitely one of the ones that was on the PlayStation that we had at the time. And I was very scathing of the general appearance, I guess, of Lara. And also, it was quite a difficult game because platformers are not my specialty. And first-person shooters are also not my specialty, so the combination of the two is not great. But I'd like to think I'm a little bit better in both of those departments these days than I was back then. Oh, there's a hole up here. Maybe we can jump up here.
It's always really, really interesting to see like who's got like what experience, I think, with Tomb Raider, because everybody seems to have different takes on it, especially depending on age as well. So this is, of course, from the first ever Tomb Raider that we have here.
I'm supposed to be jumping. Sorry, the controls on this are not...
And aren't they going to, are they not doing a rejig of this?
Yes.
We're on some sort of kind of like little capsule, aren't we, where we're going to have a re-go at Lara.
Yes, so they're going to be remastering.
2024's remastering of her.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are going to be remastering
Look at this
Tomb
rock.
Raider.
It continually faces you, look. Look, that little bit.
Oh,
that
it
little,
moves.
Look, it moves. That is beautiful. Beautiful game design.
That rotation
right there.
is beautiful.
That's definitely a 3D object right there.
So what we were talking about was what that might look like now in terms of how we're going to come back to Lara, because we're in the first iteration, aren't we? And we were all talking about her.
So this one actually came out in 1996.
Yep.
So I was actually only 1 year old when this came out.
Oh, wow.
Just say you've said that like, obviously off camera a few times now. Thanks for that. Yeah.
But Sharon, did you play the original Tomb Raider?
What, because I'm very, very old, Emma?
Just curious.
No, I didn't. I got into gaming a bit later, to be fair. So my kind of experiences with games were not so much kind of playing this, but this was something I was very, very aware of as a game. And that idea of kind of fanboy, how people felt about the character. There was a lot of kind of discussion that I was very aware of as a young woman, kind of growing up and then actually moving into teaching film and media and being very aware of that idea of not just the idea of playability and what we can get from the idea of a very strong, independent woman doing things in a game, right? Killing bats mainly and failing to get out of pits at the moment. But there was there's a lot of discussion around her as a character, and I find that's sort of something I find more interesting. This is actually making me feel like I want to play this because, unlike Catherine, I actually do like shooters and I actually do like platformers a lot more.
Okay.
So that's sort of what does fascinate me about her, and I'm actually really sort of excited to play the other version. Do you want me to try?
Come on, you're the jumper of the group.
Jump maven.
You're the jump maven of the group here.
Give it a go.
But yeah, that was my experience.
Dr. Platformer.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask then is, obviously this was one of the first lead female characters that we actually saw in a major game. So how big of a deal did you think this was at the time?
Well, I mean, for me, it was a pretty big deal. I mean, it was a big deal in two ways. So it was a big deal, firstly, that there was a female character. That's great, because at the time, like, it was mostly male characters, or the characters were not sort of identifiable as any sort of gender. But then, of course, it came with its issues because it's obviously a very sexualized female character, and so she, she's got very unrealistic body proportions. She's dressed in a way that you wouldn't really expect to be quite useful in a dungeon cave thing. I mean, I feel for her knees every time she does a roll.
Yeah, we were talking about that, weren't we?
Yeah, and and I mean, basically, it's obviously very much driven by that classic kind of male gaze sort of view of women and fantasy type women, right? So, I mean, that caused a lot of discussion in my share house at the time, and I think it continues to cause discussion, right? I mean, in terms of, obviously things have gotten a lot better, but there's still a lot of sexualization of characters in games that might, especially of women in games.
So from that,
throwing it forward makes her jump more, right?
Yeah.
I could
Wasan?
also add a little bit of that,
Get her to jump
especially
up the
on
thing.
the physical side of the women. I don't see any distinguish between the male and female movement in that game. They represent the girl by jumping really high or using all the muscles just like identical to the male character, which is distinguish that game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
So what would you say then was is your favourite female game character then?
Oh no, I was looking at you. I'm busy trying to jump. Favorite female characters. Oh, it's really hard. That's actually a really hard question because there's lots of really good female characters, right? And there's what have I been playing recently? Obviously, all your role play games have got usually really well developed characters. So I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 recently, a lot, probably a bit too much. And there's some really, really well designed female characters who have really well developed backstories. They're dressed in appropriate gear for the job that they're doing, and they're they're just complex characters that aren't just all about how they look or how they make men feel, right?
Yes.
Although, it doesn't stop anyone, there's obviously a lot
Or
of
maybe
dating
they played a
and things.
different role as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they play different roles, right? So you have a
Yes.
barbarian, they're not just all healers, right? So that was the other classic trope, one of the classic tropes is that female characters, especially like Final Fantasy games and that, you tend to be healers and that. And so you sort of get a different, different roles, different perspectives, different outfits, different, different representations of how women look, and they're more realistic. Yeah, so I'd say probably at the moment, some of my favourite characters are the Baldur's Gate ones.
Yeah, absolutely. You do tend to see that quite a lot, obviously, from things like Overwatch or League of Legends. I do think there's definitely a stigmatism there with, possibly, healers being associated with a more female character. But I have noticed companies such as them actually challenging that quite a lot and having a way more broad perspective, and actually having a range of characters that could be sort of deemed not as a typical in characteristics as what some have been in the past. I noticed that quite a bit when Overwatch revealed Brigitte. That was a very, I suppose, more bigger built character that could take on what would typically be masculine roles of being able to be more defensive because of their strength.
Yeah,
and I really
Zarya
liked
as well.
that.
Zarya as well, yeah.
And I really, really liked that. And I thought that worked really, really well. But yeah, so one of my other questions that I have for you is, do your favourite games even have females in them?
So,
Yes.
well, yes and no, in a way.
Okay.
So I am into BioShock. I've bought the BioShock pack, so I'm enjoying running around doing. You're talking about being a healer and being a nice person and stuff. Now, I started out like that in that game. Granted, I'm playing a man in the game. But I have very quickly moved towards not being that nice character and working in that way. But what's really kind of interesting in it, it gets passed across me. What's really interesting about it is a lot of the sort of the games that I actually do enjoy tend to be male characters that are actually at the centre, but it's more because of the actual kind of style of gameplay and what environment and kind of what mechanics I'm interested in using within them. So we're deep into BioShock at the moment, loving BioShock. I'm deep into Dead Space at the moment, loving Dead Space. But in terms of like female characters, playable females, not so much within those games, but they are, especially in BioShock, we do have a variety of sort of female characters in terms of they're not all good, they're not all there to be saved. They do give some sort of tangible narrative twists and turns within it. And they're just sort of, they have more intent and there's more purpose to them, which, having played like Resident Evil 4 with the tag-along, absolutely frustrated the heck out of me because I have this character who's just here and I have to protect them, but I can't because I'm busy killing zombies. So I really dislike that idea of having, you know, well, we've brought you a female character, but actually we can't control, there's no intent to the character. Very much it is a tag-along.
Yes.
And I mean, games like this, and we've pointed out some of the kind of the discussions around Lara, her physicality and the ways that she looks and sort of points in games where people will doubt Lara's ability after she's just mown down 100, you know, enemies or whatever that might be. It's interesting that we do have a very strong female character. We are travelling with her. We are this character. There are flaws, but also if we think about the time it was made, pretty big leap really in terms of like representation and just how this character actually functions in this game. So I think, you know, there's I have a tendency towards playing male characters, but this is getting me more and more kind of interested in actually kind of exploring Lara and seeing what she can do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of games that obviously we've seen Lara in now, and I think it's been really interesting to see that progression. And obviously see how their decision making's changed over the years. And obviously I kind of got into Lara Croft when I played The Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I realised from that just how different, you know, she is compared to when she first came out. I feel like she's a lot more badass. She's being represented in a way that's way more realistic. Obviously graphics are going to get better, so that's going to play a part in that, of course, but in things such as her dress sense, you know, slicking her hair back into a ponytail, but some of the hairs are coming out because she's not done it perfectly, and things like small things like that I genuinely find make a difference to the believable nature of the game. And I do think it's really, really interesting. I do think, you know, there's been a lot of criticism about Lara's appearance, you know, being overly sexualized in games. Earlier, obviously, in a certain time period, but
and I think also, like, I mean, I actually enjoyed the Tomb Raider movie. Did you ever see the movie?
With
Angelina Jolie,
she
right?
was perfect.
She was perfect, right?
Gosh,
and but she also, you know, she kind of. I mean, she obviously epitomised that kind of this sort of sexualised version of Lara Croft.
She's gorgeous.
But I mean, but she was also quite, you know, she sort of reclaimed a little bit of her agency, I guess, in that film, and I think that was sort of a bit of an apologia to women for having gone through this particular depiction, right, of Lara. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
How would you say that Lara has evolved then, in your words, over the last 20 odd years?
So with Lara, I mean, we can touch on the physicality. We can touch on, she still stays a beautiful woman, right? That's a given. She's a gorgeous woman with legs to die for. To be fair, if I had legs like that, I'd probably wander around in shorts all the time.
That is quite a thigh gap, I have to say.
I mean, you know, but I mean, it's stuff that Catherine's touched on and stuff that Wasan's touched on as well. It's that agency. It's that idea of, to use a term sort of almost fit for purpose. She's an adventurer. So why would she be in these tiny little shorts? Granted, we're in sort of a jungle setting and it's maybe hot, but we want someone who's ready for the environment, ready for the challenge that faces her.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
As we've seen her evolve, we've got a character who has become more ready for the environment that she's in.
Absolutely.
Someone I know wrote a book, just a small tangent, on Wonder Woman, and looked at the way Wonder Woman had evolved through first iteration through to present day kind of concepts and iterations, and tied it through to the idea of kind of how women are seen and represented. I think probably the same could be done with Lara. it's a shorter time period, absolutely, and a different team, absolutely. But we can see really strongly how her development ties through to how women want to be seen or want to be represented, or even how games companies want to move forwards with another sector of the market and kind of encompass their presence as well.
Absolutely.
So that would be how I would see her evolving and changing.
So going on with that,
sorry,
you want to add a little bit more?
I would like to see the female character in any game that to show the representation of a real women in terms of the role we play, not just like in a shooting games. It could be a variety of different games, for example. Let's put it in an educational type of things, or in a sport, or anything like that. Not just to target that industry only, which is the shooting, which is, and that's when we see less people or less female students, you know, will be interested in that area possibly.
Definitely. I think there's a really nice link there, actually. So what inspired you all to work within games then?
Okay. What inspired me is the animation and the modeling. So I started my career with animation and 2D animation, and I moved from one subject to the other. And I wanted to show how the animation could lead to teach and involve it or integrate it into games as well. So I started with 2D, not with the 3D, but within the time now it's into 3D characters as well. And I also like to encourage female students to join the 3D games and the animation aspects of it, and how to integrate the environment, different subjects, explore different culture possibly, all sorts of things within that. So that is my inspiration, and to progress with the learning.
I love that.
Thank you.
What about you, Sharon?
So for me, I come from sort of a film and media background. So that idea of storytelling, one of my specialisms is audio, and that idea of where we can go with audio in game, because a little bit like film, audio's been left behind a little bit. There's more focus on it now. It's getting some traction. There's really great soundscapes and great sound effects. I was hoping Catherine would fire the guns again, so we could have that wonderful gun sound.
Oh, I could do that. I could totally do that. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And a roll, and she's shot. So
nice.
That we've maybe moved a little beyond the sound effects in this game and building soundscapes. But that idea of storytelling, of that idea of interaction, that idea of, I know we don't always choose our path, but there's a level of dynamic relevance within game which I find incredibly interesting. So that for me, it's nice to move into that sector and kind of see that evolution. That's
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a
Do you want me to
pretty
run her
fair
into a wall
Yeah, I'm
a couple
finding
of
it-
times while you
I'm quite frustrated now.
wax lyrical? If I jump up this now,
Yeah.
you're going to be so angry.
No, I'll be fine, because then I'll leave you. You know, we're all in this together. It's a team effort.
Oh, there she is. Right.
What about you, Catherine? What inspired you to work in games?
Well, I've actually come from a completely different background. I'm an ethicist, and I come from basically philosophy and computer science. So I did technology ethics, and over time I've discovered that. Oh my gosh!
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
We did it.
How did you do that?
That was very dramatic.
She can ledge grab with a double click.
Oh my. Okay.
Oh, sausages.
Yes.
There she goes. Sorry.
Oh, very excited for you.
Thank you. Very excited for you. Well done.
You win the next challenge. Yeah.
So
So
my next challenge is getting out of this corner. Go on.
Yeah, she's very difficult to get out of corners.
She loves corners. Oh,
Anyway.
sorry.
Yeah, no, so I'm a technology ethicist, so and I specialised for many years in emerging technologies, and over time, I'm also like a big gamer, and I've been gaming since I was very small. And it was one of those things where I found that increasingly over time was doing more and more looking at the ethical and social impact of games and the emerging technologies that are being incorporated into games. So I mean, obviously games are quite a cutting edge space to try out new technology for games. So, you know, obviously AI has been around for a really long time in games, and we're seeing, I think you might need to. Yeah, they're not gonna be nice to you. Ow!
Ow!
Yeah. Anyway, and yeah, so I basically ended up doing a lot more in the games side of things, and yeah, now I'm. That's kind of the first thing I say, rather than the you know, I do ethics and video games. Now I do video games and ethics, I guess. You know.
So you're very proud to make that switch.
Well, for a very long time. I mean, my previous director of research used to help me, you know, get to conferences and things about video games and ethics, well, video games generally, because he called it my hobby research. So it was very much it's very nice to sort of see that it's, you know, no longer hobby research. 10 years later, it's no longer hobby research. It's a full, you know,
It's the real thing.
It's a full mainstream area of academic, you know, interest, and that makes me really excited. So.
Absolutely. No, it's really interesting. Okay, we're going to take a quick pause now while we load up the 2018 version of Tomb Raider.
Just as you found.
I don't know what that is. Oh, kill it!
I'm sure.
apparently.
And we're back with the 2018's version of Tomb Raider. Apologies if the game is a little bit choppy. I think our laptop might be struggling a little bit. But I think you'll still see the difference between the original version. So let's recap on what we achieved before. So can you all recall what you did? The laughing is intense.
Well, Sharon is the MVP of our session before.
Can we recall what happened? I managed to
yes.
jump up something twice.
Yes,
And we're all very proud.
Did we
and
have
you killed a couple of bats.
And a cheater.
Did we have any idea what was actually going on, in your opinion?
I mean, I didn't, not really. We were talking about the
We were in a
idea of-
cave.
We were in a cave.
I mean, we're just there
what
in a
is
cave.
the narrative behind it? What we are trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Is it just to focus on the actual dungeon, what we're going to find there? There are certain amount of animals that you face. Are we supposed to shoot these animals, and for what?
And they were
What
like
is-
wolves in a cave.
That's right.
Wolves don't tend to live in
And
caves.
the female character was able to aim at the animals and trying to shoot them. I mean, this is a female character, and I'm talking from the point of me as a female. Am I not going to be frightened when I see the wolves? I will
you would be a bit taken aback, I'm
But
sure.
there is no reaction from that character at all.
No, that's very true. And how did
That
you
is not
find the
emotional.
mechanics of the game? Like, did you find it difficult? Did you find it...
I think you can safely say we found it quite difficult. She likes corners, does Lara, in that version of the game. or perhaps I love corners, I'm not sure.
Me too, apparently.
We apparently love corners. She spent a lot of time in a corner.
Yes.
She enjoyed that. She also spent a lot of time when I was playing and looking up. She really loved that as well.
Yeah.
And look down.
She looked down quite a bit too.
And she liked rolling around.
Oh,
on the
that
floor.
was, to be fair, that was when you were playing her. She loved rolling around on the floor. No, the mechanics are not easy. They don't respond well.
Yes.
We struggled with the jump because it's quite laggy in terms of what we're used to. I think the idea is if you're running and then jumping, that's quite a smooth mechanic transition between those moves. As everyone who watches this will see, we spent quite a long time figuring out how we were going to actually achieve that because she didn't like jumping when the button was pushed. So the mechanics are difficult, let's
So
say.
it was unnecessarily hard, in a way, to do some of the most basic manoeuvres.
Well, I think it's got to do with the fact that we've all become quite consummate gamers, right? And we're used to controls working in a particular way. And back then, I mean, a lot of these had fairly basic controls that, you know, I mean, they were coming off the classic platformers, right? And so, you know, to suddenly put what would have been originally a 2D type platformer like Prince of Persia or something like that, to put that into a 3D space is a big shift for gamers, right, of the time. And so, you know, you've got to think about, okay, well, I assume they must have done some play testing, right? I mean, you'd hope so.
Hope so.
But But you know, whatever, you know, it must have made sense at the time to be played in the way that it does. Whereas now we have 50 million buttons that we can all press it, you know, at once, and so you expect a lot more complex gameplay now. And so, you know, the way it has become a lot more seamless. The way that these movements are sort of stitched together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, then, what's your impression of how it's changed looks-wise to this one?
Tons. And Wasan, you're the artist.
For the character looks more defined now, and he looks more. There is some kind of facial expression on the character itself, the movement as well, but still, I think lacks of the costume, if you like, is not suitable for that kind of an environment, if you like. And also, if you notice, there are that many male characters and one or two female characters. And again, I would like to understand what we're trying to achieve from this.
Well, it does tell you what you're trying to achieve. So there's a lot of so I know how to find Dominguez, but I don't know who.
Because I'm not the one.
Yeah. Right, so with this one, I mean, they have very obvious signposts about what you're supposed to do. So before we had that very long cut scene, there was actually an escape from a cave, and it basically said, escape from the cave.
Yes.
You're like, okay, great, I escaped from the cave, right? I mean.
So we did.
So we did that, and then we're in.
Now where we are?
I don't know where I can talk to this person here.
Because I haven't played this game.
And I'm sure, Sharon, you can appreciate as well, there's a lot more storytelling in this. So they're actually giving you direction, they're actually making you feel like you're in a story.
Yeah, there's direction, there's story. I mean, if I stop talking just for a minute, we've even got ambient sound going on, which, you know, Lara 96 was definitely bereft of. So we're feeling like we're more in an environment that it is we are in a space, we're experiencing a space, which is really interesting. We played a little while we were kind of waiting to move into this, and just the playability of the character, the ease of movement that we found.
We could get up the ledges.
We could, without some spectacular axe climbing has been missed.
Yes.
But it was genuine. It was a much smoother kind of. You had indication really of how you were going to do this. It made sense. Logistically, it made sense logistically. It made sense. I think what Catherine was saying about that idea of becoming more familiar with a controller, becoming more familiar with what the system will do for you. I'm not used to shooting using the buttons. I'm used to shooting on the left or the right. I'm used to that idea of a trigger. It feels more natural that I'm able to do that. So this seems to be where we're heading with this, and it's kind of much more satisfying in that way, you know. And just looking at the environment where we are at the moment, it's so much more complex. It's so beautifully lit, even, that we just feel like we're in this space.
Completely immersed.
I mean, no, because I'm talking to everyone. but you feel, you know, I'm not just running at a wall and I'm feeling outside of things. I'm in this space and I'm a part of this.
Definitely.
So it's just really interesting, and just building on what Wasan was saying about clothing. I mean, for me, she feels much more realistic. Is that she's not
a lot of
exposed. We've got a big old blanket covering on her. You know. We've covered her face even. I know she's incognito at the moment, but there's these like messages where we're going, okay, it's not all about physicality. There's some storytelling and some kind of, you know, there's discovery and stuff happening in this. You know, motivation. There's intent, and that's just really interesting. This is. We might be buying this. This is much more because actually we can walk up steps and we can axe climb, and it's much more. I will use the word immersive. I made a joke about us here, but yeah, it's much more immersive, and it's a world that you can kind of discover. This is where hello.
I think the playability is quite interesting as well, because when you played the first game, I noticed that when you went up to that cliff, you almost didn't know what to do. You were like, am I going to climb up it? Am I going to jump up it? And then when you were told you had to jump, it was like, but that's not what I do if I approach this cliff. I would put my hands on it and try and pull myself up.
Yes.
So whether with this game, I noticed when you did quite a difficult manoeuvre actually, going from one wall to a wall above you, and yet navigated that perfectly.
Well, to be fair, it did actually give me a tutorial that said press X now.
That does help.
So I'm going to say this. You gave me a tutorial, Catherine, about like jumping and stuff on the old version. Could I make it up that leg? Not for a very long time.
I couldn't either, to be fair.
So you know, I think the tutorial obviously works. It's more responsive.
Good interface.
You know, you axe climbed up that like.
Look,
You'd
I'm
been
a
axe
pro.
climbing all your days.
Yep.
I'm just walking around this cemetery at the moment.
We're trying to find a guy.
I'm
But
trying
I
to find
have
a
no
guy,
idea
right.
who or why or anything because I couldn't hear it. So
Okay.
But you can
I've
feel
done
that.
something.
you
I've
picked
got
some
some
medicine.
medicine up. Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
You can feel the spiritual side of it now.
yeah.
Which
I
is-
mean, it's obviously
which-
Day of the Dead,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's all the
The sadness there.
There's
It does
every-
reflect
no.
a little bit of,
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really
Especially with that
interesting.
light effects as well and the candles at the background.
Yeah, so a couple of facts for you now. So according to recent statistics,
Yes.
women represent half of all gamers globally, but only make up 30% of people working in the industry.
Right.
So why do you think that is?
Well, it's a classic pipeline problem, right? I mean, this is the same in the tech industry more broadly as well, right? So you have what they call it the pipeline problem because you need to have a fairly high amount of skill to get into the industry, and there's a lot of pushing of certain, potential future jobs or potential futures to different genders, right? So boys are told, oh, you can go and be a computer scientist, or you can go and be a this, that, and the other, and girls are like, you can be a teacher, and you can be a nurse. And I mean, I'm a little bit like oversimplifying it there, and things have improved a lot, but this starts very, very early, in a very, very early age, even with like gendered toys and things like that. So I mean, even these days I would like to think slightly more enlightened times, I still, like, my 4-year-old comes home and is like, I don't like unicorns because that's a girl game to play. So he's a boy. and like, we're trying very, very hard to break down those stereotypes, but they still exist. And this kind of then leads on then to the expectations of what sort of interests that people have, right? So whether they like to play games or whether they like to do something else. And then that then becomes, what they might want to do in school, like to focus on at school. And then that then leads into university or into industry or whatever, right? So they call it the pipeline, right? And the problem we have is that at various points in that pipeline, people tend to drop out for various reasons. And I mean, I came through a computer science degree in the late 90s, early 2000s, where I was out of 600 students, I was one of 3 women.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I mean, that's what it was like back then, right? It was very, very male dominated. And basically, it was about 600 students. I mean, I might be fudging the numbers slightly, but there were very, very few of us, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and that then has other pressures, right? So you get a lot of pressure as being the only, the classic kind of girls don't game or whatever. Like, I mean, the whole fact that we have this kind of push for girl gamers to kind of break down the stereotypes about who it is that actually plays games reflects that, very, very gendered expectation of who it is that plays games. And then, of course, if you don't play games, why would you ever think about making games, right? And so, I mean, I didn't even get into games really until I was like, I mean, they're around, like, I was playing them back in 1985, but I didn't really come back to it because it wasn't really considered a girl thing to do until the late 90s. And so that's a big, gap for that sort of thing. And so, yeah, we lose people through these pipelines because also if you're in a very male-dominated area, it becomes quite pressurized for you, and you get a lot of people saying horrible things to you, and you think, well, why am I bothering to be here when I could go and enjoy doing something else? And so you leave, right? And so we have that, and that gets exacerbated. And I mean, we're still seeing things like harassment in the industry is still quite high. There's still a lot of problems with retaining women throughout this whole pipeline process. That the industry is addressing, and things are happening, but it needs, there's still a long way to go, right?
Absolutely. I think we are making a lot of progress with the industry. I have seen progress even from me being around for a very short period of time. I've still seen that progress. But I can imagine from, you know, more of a 90s to early 2000s time to now, the progression must be huge in comparison. So we definitely see, you know, improvements with like women representation, and obviously some of those significant factors that you mentioned, I'm sure still exist, but at least maybe being at least addressed and hopefully sorted along the lines.
But it takes a long time for that to catch up, right?
Yes.
Because, you know, we might make changes now, but then you've still got to wait for almost an entire generation to kind of come through this whole pipeline process, right?
Absolutely.
And it's hard. It's very, very hard.
It is very hard.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've done my first degree in electronics and physics, and I was the only student, female students in the class out of 36. But now you can see the thinking is changing a little bit. Also, the diversity maybe plays a big part in it, and that's why we see less female women in that department as well. But at the moment we have different courses here at the university, which they have a lot of female students where they do modeling and art, and this is part of the game as well, which plays an important role in that.
Absolutely, and
Yes.
we're all part of the team
We
that
are
obviously wants
part
to
of the
encourage
team,
that as
yeah.
well. So Sharon, what would you say is, what do you think more can be done to highlight the opportunities that exist in the industry to girls and young women?
Well, I think one of the things is sort of you lead from the front. So something we'll talk about in a wee bit is women in game, and the university's sort of our department in particular's participation in that, and kind of hopefully forward thinking. Like there's a line in the sand that needs to be marked, and people need to kind of step up and do things. So I suppose actually our presence is actually genuinely one of the big things. We've got a department that is proactively looking to ensure that everyone is kind of represented. So it's not just a gender thing, but just everyone is represented, and that, you know, I think this is for every department everywhere, that's people who come into the industry, come into a production house, come into a team, there are other people there that are like them.
Yeah.
You can see yourself in that environment. So it's about being able to introduce younger designers, younger
That's
artists
right. Yes.
to people, say, like you or Wasan, who are teaching and worked in industry and are doing this thing, but then also to people who are working in the industry. So I think it's like baby steps, isn't it? It's showing that there is, taking that pipeline term from Catherine, that there is a route to this. And you told me the narrative that you didn't really know that art in game was it was even a possibility.
Absolutely,
for you.
yeah,
It was oh, you do art, here's your pathway.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't you do art, that's amazing. Have you thought that there's all these things you could do? It's here's you, and this
Yes.
is where you're going to be. And I think it's really important to know that actually that's not the case.
Yes.
That there's loads of opportunities, and it's
That's
kind of,
correct.
I think game has a lot of very transferable skills as well, and that you can come from sort of any background and then build in your love of game, build in your love of storytelling, build in your love of art to something that is quite creative and offers something that actually quite a lot of people will enjoy and participate in. So I think small things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You
No,
I think
completely
within the
agree.
communication as well, that will change, you know, the way we portray the games and the variety of it, that will make that industry will accept. Maybe it's not about acceptance as well, it's about integrating us and getting us involved in that industry. It's not just about one particular gender. So it's passing that information to all the students, and at the end of the day we are following our dream no matter what our background in, and I mean the education part of it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
And I do think representation as well for more than just women, but actually it can be involving many different types of women. You know, I think age bracket shouldn't come into this either. You know, when I see mature students, I do see for games courses quite regularly male,
That's right.
older students.
Yes.
And I do feel as though a lot of women maybe feel too intimidated because perhaps they've gone through a different path in their life, or perhaps because they've felt like, you know, games were not for them because of influences in the past, which, yeah, when I started my games course, I was told games were for boys, and I was not going to have that. But there are some people that may have been influenced by that want to have another chance. So I do actually think just being able to mention that and say, well, actually, you know, this can be for anybody, and that if you are in any later years, this doesn't mean you can't pursue something like this, and that you can't achieve and do amazing doing it.
I think it's also worth mentioning also for women, we particularly have, you know, we often have children, we have, you know, caring responsibilities, and the games industry has not been particularly kind on that in terms of things like crunch, and, you know, there's not a really great, it's not got a great reputation for being able to look after, you know, people with caring responsibilities, right? And there's certainly a lot in the indie game sector, I think, is actually doing really well here. There's lots of, you know, I mean, I'm part of a mums group that is about mums in games and who do game development and things like that. And it's a very, very supportive group, but it recognises that there are still a lot of barriers in industry, especially for people with caring responsibilities. So I think, you know, these things, there's still a lot that needs to be done, but I think we're getting better, you know, getting better and better every year, which is all you can hope for, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that's a really important topic, especially for this episode, because wanting to consider things such as children, I do feel like there are influences out there that make you feel like you either have to pick a career or, you know, possibly motherhood. And I do think, you know, for myself, I would like to know that I have the option of both. And I think more support within that would make me more open to the idea of having a family and having other things that bring me joy and make me live my life to the best. Like, you know, I don't want to be limited with this idea of, oh, well, if I want to go in games, you know, that's not a healthy way to see this. So I think the points that you made is actually really, really important. But yeah, what are you doing in the game at the moment?
I just did a stealth kill.
I missed it. I was looking and doing noddies.
Also, earlier in the
I
game,
nearly ripped it off you because you actually have a bow and arrow. I'm like, killing things.
off you go. You can aim the bow. But before, you'll be actually really, really impressed to know that I did a run, jump, and then I did the level climb, and it was the same thing that you said that you'd done in the original. So I was really impressed with that.
I said
They
you
kept
saw me. Am I gonna? Is it R2?
There you go.
Oh, I can aim.
Oh
like
no! Look,
nothing.
he heard you. You're not fast enough.
Look.
Go on, you got to go and stab now.
Can I go and stab him?
I don't know. I guess so. That's what I did.
Okay. As much as we are having so much fun,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that wraps up our Women in Games special. Don't forget that there are plenty more episodes of Level of Detail on our YouTube channel, so check them out. A huge thank you to our excellent guests, and always thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.